Hello BookTube, it's Joshua here, and today I'm going to be doing a video about a book that I'm reading, about an author that I'm just discovering and reading through and really taking a lot of delight in. And I was going to save this for my reading update video, but I'm very excited and I want to talk to you guys about it while the thoughts are fresh in my mind. I've not actually done the book, but I'm having such a good experience. I want to share it. And so I don't mind making a separate video for this subject alone. I've been reading through Mavis Gallant's from the 15th District. This is one of her short story collections. And the stories in her are really good. Um, I'm, I'm, I'm really falling in love with the work of this author. I have another collection, Across the Bridge, which I hope will be just as good as this. So yeah, I'm just going to talk about this. I'm just going to talk about what I've been finding. And I'm going to talk about maybe one story in particular that I just read and that's still fresh in my mind. And um, yeah, I'm on page 206, so I'm almost done. I have about 100 pages left. And so yeah, these stories are mostly based around World War II. Um, they're either leading up to it, or they take place during it or after it. And in each of the stories, you can very much feel the historical backdrop of it. Um, um, Gallant will often choose um, domestic scenes, just a family or a husband and a wife, or just a random person living in Paris or something like that. But she always shows this historical backdrop of World War II, and she always shows how that is affecting the characters' lives. I just feel like that evocation of this shifting and traumatic historical moment is always it's always present, and it's so vivid. It's one of the most vivid um, um, portrayals of how history can affect individuals I've seen. Um, and so yeah, she's basing it a lot around World War II, and showing how not just that it's affecting them, but how it's kind of creating this flawed reality for all the characters in her stories. And so as a result, a lot of the characters they're very flawed. They always misunderstand each other. Oftentimes she'll portray these conversations between characters where they're talking to each other, but they're just on two different wavelengths and they're not understanding each other. And Mavis Gallant is always watching it from a third perspective. She's always watching it from a bird's eye view. It's very objective, and so she's just depicting these characters with all their faults, and sometimes their relatability, um, from a very objective way. At the same time, though, it's not objective in a cool way. It's not objective in a judgmental way at all. One of the comparisons that kept on popping into my mind as I've been reading this is with Jane Austen. If you read Jane Austen, I think you'll find that she's very judgmental of her characters. She can sometimes be mean towards her characters, or she'll often have this biting humor, this biting wit, um, um, towards her own creations. But with Gallant, that's not the case at all. You see all of the absurdities, all of the ironies, all of their weaknesses. But Gallant, she doesn't comment on them. She refrains from being sarcastic. She just tells you what happens. She narrates what happens in a very level-headed, calm way. And I think the implication from that, the feeling that you get from that tone of voice, is one of compassion. It's one of loving her characters, even though they're so often flawed. And that's the main reason why I'm loving this book so far. It's just that there's this sense of gentleness, of warmth coming from Gallant. Even if there's not much warmth in the characters' lives themselves, even if the reality that she's depicting is often very bleak. And then so another author that I was kind of mentally comparing Gallant to was Eudora Welty. And I think Eudora Welty is also kind of similar to Gallant. She's depicting a lot of times some very bleak realities, but not really saying anything about those realities herself, but just showing them I think in a fairly gentle way. So yeah, I'm just enjoying this so much. I want to give you an example. I just read the story. This is, I think, the fifth or sixth story in the collection. And it's titled Baum, Gabriel, 1935 to blank. And so I'll just show you. It's at the top. No, maybe that won't work. I'll go to the beginning here. This is the, I don't know if it's focusing. This is the title. And then it's a very well chosen title, because I think it's just like it's like it'd be his name on some kind of form, on some kind of employment file. And the blank means that he's still living, but it also is suggestive of this kind of blankness in his life. He's living a kind of meaningless, like a fairly bleak reality, as I said. And so I'll just tell you a bit about the story, and hopefully use it as an example to show in general what Gallant is working, how Gallant is working here. So the main character is Gabriel Baum, and I believe he's a Jew, and right away the story starts by saying he's the last Baum in his family. The rest have been killed off, except for an uncle who got away early and who lives in Argentina, and who doesn't really care about him. And then eventually the uncle dies, and then again he's the last Baum. As a young boy, his parents are taken to the concentration camp, but he, I think, is somehow hidden away and saved. And so now it's just him living in the post-war. It starts out in the 60s, but it goes through the 70s and 80s. And it's just him kind of aimlessly living in his life. And there's not much more than that. But it just shows that from that first traumatic incident, it shows how that affects the entire course of his life. And it's quite bleak. It is not much there, except for the fact that at certain points throughout the story, Gallant says that inside Gabriel there's this inner child. There's this younger Gabriel that kind of pushes Gabriel to not accept his current reality. This younger Gabriel, like inside his consciousness, just it's a more idealistic version. It's a Gabriel that probably stemming from before his parents were taken from him, from before World War II happened, that still believes that the world can be fair and just. Only now that World War II has happened, and that original idealism, that original reality has been taken away, now he's just going on this different course of bleakness. But still, sometimes Gallant will show us that younger Gabriel in him. And so at the beginning of the story, she kind of talks about that idealistic version of himself, of reality in his consciousness. But then as the story progresses, it just gets more and more aimless. I mean, the story, not the story, but Gabriel's life gets more and more aimless. And Gallant says the inner Gabriel, the child version of Gabriel, has been dead for a long time, and Gabriel is living out his life in Paris as a bohemian actor, and he has one friend named Dieter, and they're both actors, and they're both totally lifelong friends. And but then near the end of the story, Dieter says, okay, so where am I here? Dieter says that he is leaving Paris. He's going to go back to Bavaria, which is where he was originally from, and open up a bakery shop. And this is Dieter kind of going back to his own idealistic reality in a way. It's him going back to you know, a more idyllic version of the world, or at least trying to capture that. It's just him trying to do that. And so and Dieter tells Gabriel that he's doing this right near the end of the story, and Gabriel Dieter says to Gabriel, "There's always a room for you if you'd like. You can come and stay at my bakery in the apartment that will be above it, as much as you want." And so I'm gonna read you a paragraph here. Still, it was an attractive thought, it's being him going to stay in the room. The greens emerged again, fresh and bright. He saw the room that could be his. Imagine being wakened in a clean room by birds singing and the smell of freshly baked bread. Flowers in a vase. Gabriel hardly knew one from the other, only the caged flowers of parks. He saw, in a linen press, sheets strewn with lavender. His clothes hung up or folded. His breakfast on a white tablecloth under a lime tree. A basket of warm bread, another of boiled eggs. Dieter's wife putting her hand on the white coffee pot to see if it was still hot enough for Gabriel. A jug of milk, another of cream. Dieter's obedient children drinking from mugs, their chins on the rim of the table. Yes, and the younger Gabriel, revived, outraged, and jealous, thrashing around in his heart, saying, "Think about empty rooms, letters left behind, cold railway stations washed down with disinfectant, dark glaciers of time." And then, Gabriel knew nothing about the country. He could not see himself actually in it. He had never been to the country except to jump out of trains. It was only in films that he had seen mist lifting or paths lost in ferns. So that reference to jumping out of trains is because he's an actor for war movies. And so I think that's a very revealing paragraph. And this is kind of something that Gallant does. She'll have a paragraph near the end of the story that suddenly kind of, I think, illuminates the rest of what came before. And I think that was this paragraph. You have, just for a second, just for a glimmer of time, or just for a glimpse, you have Gabriel's younger self being revived in him, that idealistic version of a juster, fairer reality coming into his mind. And that's what that description of being in the country is, being with his friend Dieter, and that very idyllic life that he is imagining. But then right at the end of that, the younger Gabriel, the child in him, awakes, and it's revived and outraged and jealous, because the younger Gabriel, it is this idealistic version of him, but it's also looking around at what the real reality is, and it's saying, this isn't fair, this isn't right, and it's angry. And so that's what it's reminding him of. It's saying, think about empty rooms, letters left behind, cold railway stations washed down with disinfectant, dark glaciers of time. And then suddenly that dream is gone, and the story ends with Gabriel, I think, just living out his life in the same bleak reality. But it's not Gallant herself getting bleak. It's just showing. It's just Gallant showing Gabriel's reality, but also providing us with so much insight and depth that you aren't struck. You don't feel bleak reading it. You feel the compassion that Gallant herself feels. And yeah, that is just what I wanted to show you. I'm surprised that I actually pulled this video off, because I was very worried that I was going to stutter or blank. But yeah, okay. So thank you. I hope you guys enjoyed that video. This was just a impassioned, thing. I don't know what the word would be. I can't. Now I'm blanking. But okay. Thank you, BookTube. Goodbye. I hope you enjoyed.